Hello, everybody. This is Constance from Mysterious Galaxy. I am very excited tonight. We have an awesome event with Sarah and Catherine tonight where they are going to be talking to you about their great books. I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, talk to you about their books and everything, and they're also going to be answering any questions that you have. So make sure that you put in the comment section down below any questions that you have, and then also we are having their books for sale as well as the signed and personalized book plates. So I'm going to put the link for that, guys, at the top of the video for you. Catherine and Sarah, I'll let you guys take it away.
Thank you, Constance. You want to go ahead, Sarah? Sure. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here with Catherine Linka tonight. My name's Sarah Tomp. We actually know each other from Vermont College of Fine Arts a long time ago. We were supposed to be having our event in person at Mysterious Galaxy. We're so grateful to them for being flexible and willing to fit us in, making the best of it. So we're hoping you're here tonight and excited to talk to you about our books.
Yeah, thanks so much for getting us started, Sarah. I wanted to chime in and say, yes, thank you, Mysterious Galaxy, for being so flexible and changing what was live into doing a virtual event and making sure that there's another way for us to connect with readers and writers out there. Sarah and I are so excited to be doing this together, because not only are we both writers, but we're also people who work with a lot of writers. We both work with aspiring writers. And one of the things that we're hoping to do tonight is to give those aspiring writers a few tips about how to approach their characters.
Do you want to tell them about your book? Or do you want to introduce your character first, Catherine?
My book is What I Want You to See. It just launched in February. It is the story of Sabine. Sabine is a first year at an art institute in Pasadena, California. She has won a prestigious scholarship to go to the school. And what no one knows is that Sabine desperately needs this scholarship because her mother had been killed in a hit and run a few months before school started. So Sabine has been living in her car. And so this is the story of how she is, she's very desperate to hold on to this scholarship and makes a few mistakes along the way, and how she gets through that experience. All right, Sarah, we were talking about how our books are like the same book and yet totally different.
Right. Basically, Catherine and I like to put our characters in really tough situations. They're two girls who are having, they're just lost, I think. They are on the verge of being lost anyways. So the easy part of impossible, my main character is Victoria, but she goes by the name Rhea Williams. She has been a passionate competitive diver. She has spent the last 11 years, working really hard at her sport, always with her eye on the Olympics. At the start of the book, she's at this big meet. She has this chance to be selected for a very elite training team, but she messes up and it's kind of a freak situation, but she ends up having to scratch the meet. And at that point, her coach, who has worked with her and who she has given everything to, kicks her off the team. And so we open the book with her just lost. She's someone who has ADHD and she has really bad self-esteem and just has never had a plan B. She was always going to be a diver. That's all she ever wanted to do. It's what she loves, and she's desperately lost without it.
You never say she has ADHD in the book. You sort of imply it, but you never come out and say it. So I'm interested. I'm fascinated that you're saying this right now.
Oh, it is actually in there. She takes her medications and she's got her things, but I I don't. She, it's definitely who it sort of informs everything that she perceives about herself. She has problems with attention or, attending to the wrong things. She is very restless by nature. That's part of, how she got into sports in the first place, is she really needs that outlet, to become physically tired. In there. But she I work in schools, and a lot of the kids I work with are, what now the term is neurodiverse. I've worked in schools long enough that the terms have changed along the way. But, these are the kids that I see all the time. First of all, I think most of us are somewhere on the spectrum of everything, I think we all have our different tendencies. And so, I wasn't sure whether labels are a funny thing. I wasn't sure how to address the labels in there.
Well, I'm the only one in my house who doesn't have ADHD. So so for me, that's very familiar territory. But one of the things I do love is that she, skipping ahead just a little bit, is that she sees her coach as someone who saw that as a positive. And so that makes tremendous sense. Can we step back for just a minute and talk about your inspiration for writing this character?
Do you want to? Yeah. That's my question I always have the hardest time with.
I didn't know that.
No, just because I am a slow writer. And so I always think of books as kind of time capsules. They end up, I start in one place, and because life goes on and I'm writing and I'm working and I'm doing all these different things, lots of different elements kind of find their way in. The obvious answer as far as the diving goes, my daughter was a competitive diver in high school and college. When I first started the idea of writing about a diver, I was so in awe of these young people who were willing to do these crazy things that I would never in a million years do. And I wanted to celebrate that.
Yeah.
Along the way, she ended up having some coach trouble. This is not her story. I always want to say that, I'm not exploiting her life, but I will say that my awe kind of transformed into anger along the way. And there is definitely some of that.
Yeah.
Part of the story. How about you? Are you an artist? I'm always been so fascinated with the world of fine art.
Right.
This competitive school that she is at, how much of that is you? Do you know anything of, how did that happen?
I grew up painting, drawing, and ceramics, photography, all of that. And when I was sort of casting about for what I wanted to write next, I thought, how about art? Because I love art, and I live in LA, which is one of the great centers for contemporary art in the country. But I really didn't know anything about contemporary art. So I sort of saw this as my chance to completely indulge my love of art. And maybe there would be a book and maybe there wouldn't. Now, there was so much that I learned because, of course, being the kind of research nerd that I am, I was reading about the economics of the contemporary art world and the sociology of it. And I had so much fun going into that world. If I hadn't have, I don't think I would have understood it as well if I had never played with the media. So that gave me an advantage, having done some art myself. Now, I also think that Vermont was sort of a jumping off point for looking at a situation in which you are surrounded by creative peers, and not only are they your team, but they may also be your competition. And I mean, I was really fortunate that almost every workshop I was in was positive, but I did see a couple of workshops where I was cringing, just a couple, like two, but you see what's happening to this person and you're like, oh my God, this is so awful. So awful.
Honestly, I'm a teacher. I teach writing classes for UCSD Extension, and I've been the person feeling like, okay, wait, need to pull up the reins, because it's I'm so happy to have you say that, because it's funny, the art, diving, honestly, too, and writing are also subjective. Diving, there is like a certain, well, I guess all of it, there's a certain skills that can not be argued, but then there's this whole subjective quality too.
Oh yeah.
Where, you just don't know if you're going to connect or it's going to be conveyed the way that you intended and all that. So
like when they say, oh, it's the Russian judge, watch out for the Russian.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, maybe with writers, it's the same thing. There's definitely, sometimes it can seem elusive what some people, what connects, what really takes off.
Absolutely. Very much. And in art too, there's so much judgment about what makes good art. And
that's what fascinates me, is that whole question, like some of the things, because you look at it, there's the old joke like, oh, my kindergartner could do this. And, I know that's not true, but it's like, hey, who decided this is really great art, somewhere.
And that was one of the things that was very liberating in learning about contemporary art, was that the jury's still out. What matters is what you connect with, because honestly, 300 years from now, that thing may be just completely forgotten. So that was really so liberating to know that I could walk into a museum and not like something, and that was fine.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about her special technique? Just because I think that's a neat side.
Oh, the encaustic?
Yeah, I had never heard of that personally. So I'm imagining I'm not the only person. So just do a little nerd thing there and tell us about that.
Well, she knows how to do this type of painting, which is called encaustic, where the pigment is actually melted into wax and it is applied to the canvas, and then it is fused to the canvas. Jasper Johns is probably the most famous painter that I'm aware of who used encaustic, but it's highly unusual. And the person that she wants to have mentor her, this Colin Krell, he uses encaustic. And so she knows how to do this technique, but it's not a medium that she would normally use. It was interesting finding out about. I had no idea it existed before I did it.
Yeah, I was fascinated by it too. Okay, I wondered if you had done it.
Not yet.
That's a great segue to talk about Krell.
Yes.
Because that's another commonality with our books, is we both, our characters have these people who really control so much of their destiny, at least in their perception. And so tell us about Krell. Where did, first of all, explain who he is.
Okay.
Maybe Sabine's relationship with him.
Okay.
And then if you want to tell us where your inspiration came from.
Colin Krell is, he's a portrait painter. He's the head of the painting department at the Institute for Visual Arts that she attends. Before she goes to Kalinva, she wants him to be her mentor. He does portraits, she's a portrait painter, and she is really hoping for that relationship. But when she gets there, she finds that she can't please him.
Oh, it killed me. To say, there's these, like you're talking about the workshops, like have the same thing that with the art class. Just everybody was like in these art classes, like here you are, you put your heart and soul into this, and to just belittle what you're doing. I cringed for her.
And she has to please him because her scholarship is a merit scholarship. So she really sees him being the obstacle to her getting to continue her education. It's a very difficult situation. She's really trying to figure out how she makes this work because she knows she needs him on her side. Now, he does not know her. She's only been at school for 6 weeks, so he barely knows her, which is very different from the relationship that Benny and Rhea have, because Benny has known her since she was, what, 10?
Yeah, younger, like 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my character, her battle to fight is against her coach, who has he's made her amazing diver. She really thinks that he is the only person who has ever looked at her impulsivity, her kind of reckless way of coming at the life, just the way she puts it is, leap first, look later. He's the only person that thinks that's a great thing. And he really boosts her up when she's struggling at school. He tells her, life, there's not gonna be spelling tests in life, don't worry about that. And her perception is that he knows her and sees her value. And so, but so much of that is just because she's given all of her time to him too. She's she has been under his influence for far more than anyone, really, even more than her parents. But Benny also has a temper, and he feels like he owns her, and, and the fact that he kicks her off the team and then she literally has no other choices, she can't dive without him.
Yeah, you really see, this idea of both our characters being lost, that she has nowhere to go. Rhea is just sort of walking down the street because her classes have been reduced. She's on a minimum schedule, so she doesn't even have sort of an academic life to go back to. All she really has is diving. And this is kind of similar to Sabine, where if she doesn't have art school, she has nothing.
She doesn't have her mom. She doesn't even have stable housing. She's got so many things.
And I had, someone was talking about my book as being very honest, because this wasn't a case of, oh, well, she could do this or she could do that. And I think that's really the case with Rhea as well. The stakes are so high here because this is all our characters have. This is who they are. Diving, being a diver or being an artist is who they are. And so what they care about, it's critical to them.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions I see that we're getting is about our research for the book. You've already talked about the art part of it. How about your actual character? Sabine, did you how did you come about getting to know her? What's your tricks for really getting inside her? Because we are in her head in the story.
I think I'm someone who just keeps writing into my character. I write the scene, and then I usually start out listening to the dialogue in my head, and then I go back and I go, okay, so what does she look like, and what exactly, what are her gestures, what are, what's she feeling at this time, and then I go back again and I go, okay, why is this scene important? What does this mean to her, this moment? What does it signify? So so I have to just keep going back and back and back. I can never just write forward 200 pages. I'm in that scene forever trying to figure out why I'm there.
I always call my writing process a spiral, instead of going a straight line, because I just kind of spin around and around there.
Maybe it's a Fibonacci sequence.
Oh, there we go. One of my go-to books that, for crafting and writing is the I feel like Save the Cat it's a screen reading book by Blake Snyder. That was the book that really taught me how to understand plot. But one of the things that he has in there too is he talks about a character's 6 things that they need fixing. And so that, that's kind of where I started with Rhea. And so I had her, and that's where you feel like you're just being so mean to these characters, but, I had someone who didn't have school, doesn't do well in school. She's having, she feels like she's disappointed her parents, plus she can't tell them the truth. So she's got this fractured relationship with her parents. She's lost diving, which is the main thing she loves. She doesn't have anything else planned for the future. She's with the wrong boyfriend. He's a perfectly nice guy, but he's not right for her. And she's got this competition with her best friend.
Yeah.
And so I know in your book too, there's a lot of that competition thing with other friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that kind of conflict is so interesting because it has so many dimensions, right? You're friends, you care about each other, but there's only one slot. There's only one person who's going to get this. So there's this kind of back and forth tension, even with your best friend, there's this back and forth tension. And, that's one of the things that I really noticed that really hit me about Cotton, this person that Rhea gets to know is that he's the only one who doesn't want anything from her. And I think
I know I made him up, but I love him.
He's fabulous. I love Cotton. Which is a nice segue because to me, one of the things that's so interesting is that Rhea, in looking for her salvation or looking for how she is what she's going to do from here, goes underground. And it's so interesting that a water baby goes down goes spelunking. Tell us about that decision. Why did you do that?
I like caves, No, I'm the daughter of a geologist. And so my father could, he could write, he literally wrote poetry about rocks. He loved rocks. Yeah. We just have so many funny stories about like him actually having an entire suitcase going through the airport and then being like, what's in here? Bunch of rocks? And it's like, well, yes, sir, actually there is. But anyways, he was the one who took us caving.
Yeah.
My first novel, My Best Everything, also took place in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about the caves that are there, but they fit into that story. And so honestly, the caving is probably the first thing that where this story started, and then like I said, my books are these time capsules. And so I wanted to write about caving.
Okay.
And then it just, and then it just kind of worked. But I think it's also really, the more, it wasn't like a conscious thing from the start, but as going through revisions and stuff, it's like, wow, there's so much symbolism to that.
Oh.
And I do think, and there's so much about secrets, because that's like a big thing is like Rhea has so many secrets and she needs to tell them, but she can't. And so she finds in the dark, she can somehow, she can see the things she couldn't see before. And so, and I do think there's something to that. Like, even like when my kids were teens, I felt like if I, asked them directly something, they could never answer me. But if we maybe came at it sideways or we were doing something else at the same time, that's completely unrelated. I felt like I learned so many things when they were learning to drive, because they were busy. And so they would like tell me things without hiding. But yeah, so the caving, like I said, that's actually kind of where it started.
Oh, that's it's funny that your dad was a geologist and here we have Cotton. And I have the character Kevin from Kansas, who's an engineer / art.
Yes, very similar.
And I come from a family of engineers. So I find this all very ironic.
That's pretty, I know. I really want people to read both our books and see all the comparisons like in there, because it's not, but that's, I think too, to be reassuring to people when you have an idea for a book and then you think, oh, somebody else already has that idea. You know, the details are what makes it so different and the things that you bring to it. But yeah, so we both got these nerdy boys. And so for me, like with Cotton, he really, he was the friend that Rhea needed, you know, like because she doesn't trust herself. She's used to people playing games with her, or she's used to getting things wrong, you know, like her perception is that she's going to have the wrong answer. That's kind of her default mode.
Yeah.
And here, like Cotton just doesn't allow that because he's so straightforward. Yeah. So, you know, he says what he means and he means what he says, and there's no game playing. And that's just what she needs. You know, she needs somebody who will just tell it like it is, even if it's not what she wants to hear. You know, so.
Well, I think two of the things he does really well is he gives her a sense that you map it out. You map out where you've been, and that helps you be safe, right? And he also makes her face the fears of being underground. Just deal with it, right? And I think that's something that she needs to learn. And, you know, it's such an important part of her journey.
Which, again, let's go back to Kevin in your story, because he thinks so differently. You know, he just owns completely. He's doing art that nobody else is doing.
Right.
And again, you know, people could belittle it or make fun of it or, you know, call it a toy or something. But that's what he gives Sabine is, you know, I'm going to own it. And
you know. He you know, because he's doing kinetic art and he knows that the art world doesn't think of it as fine art. He knows that, and he's good with it because it's really what he wants to do. And so he has a much more realistic take on things, whereas Sabine sees a lot of stuff as very personal. He doesn't see it as personal, and he's always trying to sort of help her see that she isn't being attacked the way she thinks she's being attacked. Mm-hmm. But it takes a long time for that message to like get through.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you and I were talking too about is just how hard it is for young women to to be proud of themselves in some ways, you know, like I think it's really, you know, we're conditioned to be modest and we're conditioned to be, I don't know, like you go first, you know, to be polite, to be the nice girl. So like you said, you have Sabine making some bad choices, you know, along the way. Where did like that whole Iona character, where did she come from? Or do you
so the character of Iona is the reality star that Sabine's mom worked for. Sabine's mom was like the housekeeper / assistant to this reality star. And they lived in the apartment over the garage. And so when Sabine lost her mom, she also lost her place to live. And Iona is, you know, she's a narcissist, right? I mean, she believes that the camera should be on her. And I live in LA, right? You know, there's a lot of people who are trying to live like reality stars in LA, right? Who really do think that they are the stars of their own lives. And so that's where Iona came from. But she's, you know, if we go to, you know, if you were to look at the wound, right? The original wound that a lot of writers talk about, part of that wound goes back to Iona and the way that Iona treated a Sabine. And so that is why Sabine tends to misread things, because she remembers that experience with Iona and she takes that forward into her life. That and that creates all of these really misguided thoughts that guide her or misguide her.
Mm-hmm. So I think, yeah, maybe that's something for readers to take away is what are your misguided thoughts? Because I think, we all have, the way we see ourselves, the way others see us.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my things with Rhea and Cotton too, is like, he's like the first, but she thought Benny was the only one that could value her the way she is.
Yes.
He had her wrong, but then Cotton comes along and he sees her in a whole different way and values her. But anyway, so I think readers, I would love for readers to kind of maybe take a minute to self-evaluate, because I don't think we can be fully accurate about how others see us.
I think it's part of the journey of becoming mature is, going from thinking that everybody is zooming in on all of your faults to, as you get older, you realize that, a lot of people are not even paying attention to you, right? They've got their own stuff going on. And then as you get way old, you're like, screw them. I mean, I don't care what they think.
They can say what they want, yeah. And your children then say, like, no, thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to look at some of our notes because I want to make sure we don't forget anything. What do you see if you're how do you relate to Sabine yourself? Do you?
When I looked at Sabine, I thought, oh, Sabine is like me in that she's very resourceful. When she loses her mom and she loses her apartment, she finds ways to keep herself afloat. She goes to the dog park and she draws dog pictures for $20. She gets a job as a maid working night times because she knows from her mom, right? She had helped her mom enough that she knows how to clean. So she's someone who can take her skills and translate them. She is a survivor, even though she is adrift at this point. And she has this very strong sense of self. And this was something I actually had to fight for with my editor, because my editor expected that if Sabine was someone who had been living in her car for several months, that Sabine would have lost her self-value, her self-worth. Mm. And I really had to argue and say, no, I mean, her self-worth is in her knowledge of her talent, her knowledge of her ability. And it isn't until
because she does come back and say, but I'm as good as they are, she does know that she's,
yeah.
She knows that she has skills. She knows she has something to say with her art. She does have that confidence, which is very appealing.
And I think that, I think it's important for someone who's aspiring to write or who is going into a relationship with an editor to really know what matters to you. That certainly you listen to your editor, you take advice, but when something is really essential like that, you have to stand your ground.
It's true. Sorry, I'm seeing a question because it's related, whether there was a version in my story with a different ending. I don't want to say anything about the ending because obviously plot spoilers and things. But I have to say, the ending of my story stayed the same throughout. There was a lot of changes of other things, but it's kind of like it ended, I knew where I wanted it to end. And anyway, so I don't want to go too far with that. I have to say my editorial experience was amazing with this book. I don't know. It's funny, somehow there was a good rapport and connection, and I never had any of those kind of like really pushback moments with this one. But one of when early in an early draft, though, it took me, like I said, it takes me a long time to write a book. Some early readers they found Rhea so annoying. And some of that was her lack of confidence and her always calling herself wrong and just sort of assuming that she had things wrong. And actually that was like, it offended me at the time, but it actually helped me focus who she was, because it was that is her default mode. She assumes that she's annoying people, kind of, because, and those are the kids that do have ADHD.
Yeah.
They get in trouble, they get scolded, they get redirected. They're kind of constantly being told no. So,
right.
So anyways, it was actually really, it helped me. Like, it was like all of a sudden I knew who she was, like that helped so much. Like, that's what's going on with her, and then she kind of became where she, because I knew that about her, I saw ways that she, it's part of why she didn't want to tell people when she messed up, like when she got in trouble at diving, is because, she's always getting in trouble. And, she feels that default mode of that she's a mess up. So another question we have is if we have advice for writers starting out in the publishing world. So Catherine, you've worked as a bookseller and a writer and a teacher. Like, what's some of your go-to advice that you give people when they're asking about writing and publishing?
I think the most important thing is to write the book that you need to write. It's easy for people to say, oh, there isn't a book about alligator princesses, right? And so there's this hole in the market and I'm going to fill it. Well, unless that represents who you are and what you're really deeply interested in, there's no need to go filling a hole in the market.
I would read that book just in case I know. Totally agree.
Clearly there's an opportunity. But I think, both you and I have talked tonight about things that are very central to who we are, that our stories have come out of our backgrounds, our interests, our, the things that we've experienced in our lives. And that's where your books should come from. And I also think that it's very helpful when you're stuck on a particular thing to find the teacher or the craft book that gives you the specific thing you need at that moment in time. But you don't need to take all of it. There can be just a kernel that you get from a teacher or a kernel you get from a book, and that's enough. You don't have to follow it like
I feel like you can hear the same thing over and over again, and then finally you get it. Like, you don't, you know what I mean? You don't understand. You hear it the first 10 times, you believe it even, but you don't own it until the 12th time or whenever it is that you need.
And sometimes you're not ready. The problem that you're grappling with is not the one that people around you are trying to teach you. Mm-hmm. So it's what you need at that moment in time.
Right.
What about you, Sarah? What would you tell people?
I'm just thinking of what you said. Now I'm just stealing your answer, but like I said, it takes me a long time to write books. And I think it is sort of, some of it's my lack of attention. Some of it's, doing other things. But so basically my advice is, if you're going to write a novel, write about characters that you want to hang out with.
Oh, yeah.
That you want to spend time with, because you're going to be spending so much time with them. At least I am. So I want to tell one funny story about one of my scenes in my books, just because I don't know if this friend is out there, but I have a friend. We went on a writing a retreat, and we were going to be, we were meeting her husband and family. And so we found a place on the side of the road to meet. And so we're there happy and oblivious and just, Everything is good. Her husband shows up and is like, what are you doing? You know, you're in a strip club parking lot. Gets in the car, picking mom up at the strip club. So anyways, there's one scene in my book where Rhea parks her car in a strip club and has no idea that it's a strip club. And so that scene, so anyways, that's just one of my little tidbits about how your life influences. Yeah. When I started the book, never had any idea about that, having that. So many of my little details and things are riffs off of something that happened along the way. And it's like, oh, that's entertaining. Like, that cracks me up. So I'm just going to throw that in there. But no, yeah. And I think the other thing, and that actually is probably my biggest bit of advice, is have those writer friends that are willing to go on retreats with you, or willing to listen to you talk about the same book that you've been writing for the last 5 years, or who just get excited when you're done, whatever done means.
Yeah.
It's the writing community I found it to be such a welcoming, positive place. And so that's probably my biggest thing, is get your tribe, get those people.
I call them my wolf pack.
There you go. I love that. Where does that come from, though?
I don't know. Girls who run with wolves.
All right, there you go. All right. So is that a good thing to add?
There was a question. What are we working on now? What are you working on now, Sarah?
That is another hard question. I'm always writing. I really am. I have a novel that is complete, needs revising.
Yeah.
And then the whole world went crazy, and somehow I can't bring myself, because I do write about these tough situations. It's a mental health story. It's a girl whose friend is struggling with bipolar disorder. And, it's got a love story because I love love, and it's, but at its heart, it's a friendship story more than anything, which is another kind of love story, I think. But anyways, I just haven't been able to get the work done that needs to be done with my headspace right now. And so I am now actually writing a middle grade fantasy, which I never would have thought that I would do, but that's very new. We'll see if my attention span can last. How about you, Catherine? What's up for you?
I am researching a nonfiction story, a possible nonfiction story about a woman who was a conservationist and who was responsible for Joshua Tree being named a national monument.
Oh.
So it's very interesting, and it gives me a lot of places to go in deep in the internet in my search for information about this person. But hey, I'm free of not having to try and write anything coherent right now.
Very California.
Very, very much, very much.
Okay, well, thank you guys for being here today, and thank you, Mysterious Galaxy. You're fantastic. Having us. If you order your books, want to buy one of our books, order them through the website and let them know how you'd like us to sign, because we have personalized book plates to include, and we're just so excited that we were able to be here tonight.
Yay, well, thank you so much,
Galaxy.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Catherine. It was such a pleasure getting to have you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end our live stream. Goodbye, everybody.